Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy. I've inked hundreds of comic books. I'm a 3-time author on Amazon exclusive, and I'm still going through my $2 bin pile of comics, and it varies from pretty cool to to this. Now, I got to inform any of you youngins out there who are the Exiles. They were a branch of the X-Men years later after this book came out. Let's see, where do I start? Ultra Force. They're from the Ultraverse, which was published by Malibu Comics. The first year that Image published through Malibu Comics, everybody made a ton of money, including Malibu, which was amazing. And they created their own line of superheroes. They came out with like 8 or more comics, and frankly, a lot of them were derivative. And a few years later, I mean, they were actually doing okay. You know, they were selling okay. You also had Valiant out there. You know, you had a lot of people going for that piece of pie, and you had top creators working on the Ultraverse. But it was just one more thing when the speculator boom was beginning to pop. Then, Ultraverse and other books were casualties. Now, they're probably wondering, what the hell is this going on? Okay, well, this is sort of the last gasp of the 90s, even though it's dated 1995. After Image struck huge, so many, especially Marvel books, they copied the Image style, and some okay and some very poorly. They would follow the worst examples because at the time that's what it seemed the kids were reading and wanting and investing in. But the second half of the 90s, it was more sobering, and it was kind of leading into the new millennium where you would get like quality books coming out, and more quality than quantity from every publisher. Although DC was pretty solid for the most part. And I'm not just saying that because I worked for DC. I mean, I wanted to work for Marvel all my life. But when I got my comps in the mail, they would send freelancers a box of comps of everything published that month. I saw a lot of high quality stuff. I mean, some of it was tamed down because in the name of storytelling, like you could see who was doing this, who was doing that. And I had the fortune to eventually work on a bunch of the Batman titles, and they were really tightly edited, and they made sense. They were good art, good story, and Denny O'Neil and the rest, he had a bunch of assistant editors who pretty much followed his edict on how to do good comics, and they were good comics. So, including myself. Well, okay, I'm going to go back to almost the beginning. Ultraverse had a bunch of titles. They had Prototype, which was sort of an Iron Man, but he was just some guy in a suit. He wasn't like a genius. And then, what else? They had Sludge, which was Steve Gerber's sort of man thing. And they had one book I liked, Solitaire. It was because it was drawn by Jeff Johnson, who is a martial artist, and he does really cool action and such. And there was this guy Prime by Gerard Jones and Norm Brayfogle. Good stuff. Well, what was interesting is when they were pumping out titles at Malibu, they came up with this one idea to start a team called the Exiles. And what they did not tell the retailers or anybody was that issue 4 was the last issue. They all got killed. And that was such a cool thing. You didn't really have much in social media back then. But however, I've heard retailers grumble about it because, they order, there were books solicited afterwards. And, they kind of got, it's like, don't fuck with the retailers. Now, similarly, The Walking Dead, they solicited up to 200, but Kirkman ended it with 193 or 194 as a shock value. And I've talked to a couple retailers who are really pissed at that because, it was already being solicited in further down the line. But that's neither here or there. Well, what happened is Ultraverse took a piece of the pie from the speculator boom. There was Marvel, DC, then Image, and Image. Their first year was with Malibu Comics, and Malibu, just by publishing the Image guys who got like 80 or 90% of the profit, Malibu made a ton of money just on scraps. So that's when they started their Ultraverse, and it was sort of a creator-owned, but it was more a writer's creator-owned book publication. So you had a lot of people who I don't even know his name on here, but it was interesting. I mean, there was. I bought some of the early issues. At the time, I was right on the verge of breaking into comics, so I was kind of picking a couple of different books from different publishers. I mean, everybody was trying to do their own universe, and everybody forgets that the Marvel Universe didn't start off with 8 titles or even 4 titles. It was the Fantastic Four, and then eventually like Spider-Man, and it was slow going, and that's how the building blocks of a comic book universe is. You just don't throw a bunch of titles at them and say, okay, they're interconnected. I mean, it's good to... When the Hulk showed up in Fantastic Four 12, I'm sure whoever was buying them at the time lost his mind, realizing that, I mean, in a good way, learning that the Hulk was in the same universe as the FF as were Spider-Man, because Spider-Man encountered the FF earlier. There was also, there was Ultraverse, there was Valiant, and both companies were pumping out more and more titles. And a lot of, Dark Horse did a lot of licensed stuff, but they also kind of did Comics Greatest World, which was like 16 one-shots by top talents, and only a couple of them stuck. It was just weird. I mean, it was... get the stuff out here and grab the money, and it was good while it lasted, but it wasn't for me. I did though make some good money on the early Valiants and the Men in Black miniseries from Eternity. I traded them for store credit, and I got like $500, in store credit, because you get more instead of cash. So Marvel bought Ultraforce, and for the longest time, the reasoning or the legend had it that they wanted Ultraverse's coloring, Malibu's coloring, because Malibu was kind of ahead of the curve. Image was too, and they were the same two companies together. But I've heard also that they bought the Ultraverse just to chop down a piece of the pie, or grab a piece of the pie, and have less marketplace, increase their marketplace presence by getting rid of the Ultraforce. Even though it was not maybe as much, but it was pretty successful from what I understand. But I was already pro by the time this came out. It says 1995, and like most people, I ignored this. They didn't initially have the Ultraverse meet the Marvel Universe, but when they did, it was just not the same. They'd have to change things sometimes, and for whatever reason, because it was a Marvel book now, and they had the sort of pretense that the Ultraverse was separate completely from the Marvel Universe, and that just wasn't feasible. If you're going to be able to team up Juggernaut with one of their characters, I mean, why not? There's Prototype. That's his like second uniform, or whatever, and that's every team has to have their generic Wolverine Claw character. Okay, here we go. I blocked out the names because I just don't want to. I don't want it to. I just don't want to say, hey, they suck, and this and that. But because I think everybody on this team has done better work elsewhere, and this really strikes me as a rush job, because some of these mini-series, and Ultraverse was still sort of its own thing for a little while. I think it was just like a clumsy marriage. you know, it's decent. I don't like coloring on the word balloons or the second. Now, that's just plain hideous. That coloring is just so awful. Now, I didn't mention the colors because when I worked at CrossGen, I had the pleasure to see the other ends of production, not just the inking and penciling and writing. I got to see how they color, and I've seen lettering, the whole shebang, production. But the coloring in this book is pretty dark in places. Like, that's very dark. But I remember looking, Frank Diamara was coloring El Cazador with Chuck Dixon writing and Steve Epting on pencil and ink, and sometimes it would print out a little darker than intended because the image on his computer screen when he was coloring it was lighter. So sometimes you can't trust the screen versus when it's printed, and that happens. So I think that's what happened in this case. I really don't think it was so we go to this. It's very uninspired. Just a pay. And some of these 3/4 turns are really wonky, and they are hard to do. This guy, I can't remember his name. Anyway, a lot of the team members of this guy died. Exiles 1 through 4, right through, which was their crossover within a crossover. This character I don't remember was designed by George Perez for their Ultra Force comic. I love that design. And so there we go. In the first panel, her right breast seems to pop up like another 6 inches than her other one. It's just very odd. It's like pointing at the juggernauts. What do you call those things? I don't know. I can't think of it right now. Flares? Is that what they call them? No. But you get what I'm saying. And some of the pages are stronger than others. And as a comics pro, I can tell you, you knock yourself out. You knock some of these out to get the book done. Then you can save your mojo for the really heavy lifting stuff. And for some reason, Juggernaut's all nice and calm and all that. And over the years, they make Juggernaut and X-Men, which was it's just dumb. I mean, he's done so much destruction. He's never been a team player. And that's a really weird page there. It's just odd. Like I said, it's all this storytelling. Everyone's trying to be McFarlane or and this one here, it's just odd. Like, some of the stuff could have been trimmed because it just really, I guess it fits, but not quite. And the generic flaming character. You always have to have a Human Torch or whatever. Oh, up close and personal with Foxfire, Malibu Bullpen, Nightman versus Gambit. What is it? Mantra. So that's a pretty decent illustration. Art by Fang and Rodriguez. I remember them. It was a cop show in the 70s. One of the best. Well, you see, there's really no need for a Foxfire in the Marvel Universe. You got a lot of other characters that frankly have a lot more history in it. Now we're kind of getting into a bit of Rob Liefeld territory on some of this stuff, where it's just kind of quick jump cuts of individual, like just heads or, everything but feet. Okay, there's feet there. I'm sorry. Here's another coloring problem. You go yellow, 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 and then you got that all yellow. Now, that's a nice little payoff Juggernaut stomp there. And this woman has like an electrical charge to her, but why make the background a similar hue? You just lose. It just gets all muddied. And so I think that the choices are very odd. It is by Malibu Studio. So I don't know if everybody grabbed the page and said, and they all said, repugnant male vermin. Yeah, I get that once in a while. Now, here's your money shot. Juggernaut versus Prime. One of the most powerful characters in the Ultraverse. And, you know, the bottom panels are sort of like we're trying to squeeze in underneath all these big figures. And this also drives me nuts. Like, everything is the same blue. I've done work where I would have a character in this kind of area, and everything was the same, even with like a broken wire that was a live wire that's spackled. It just had a little bit of a white, but that's just, I don't know, there's nothing to it. It's just kind of lazy. So these are just one of those quickie pages. So, you know, already the Juggernaut Prime battle is kind of wrapping up, and it's like that's the only thing really worth reading in this book, because they're the big powerhouses. And you know, these long vertical panels are good cheats. I mean, McFarlane, I think he might have started that whole thing where you can actually try and tell a story by only drawing a little bit. Oh, I love this. Attitude is everything. So like when you have attitude, it's important to bend over and present yourself like a mandrill. That's just nice drawing, but it's kind of, I don't know. It actually looks more, at least it's proportionate. She doesn't have like legs that are 9 feet long, but you get what I'm saying. So, you know, are you ready, kid? Yeah, I was born ready. And this big thing comes out, and it's just so freaking clumsy. It's so, it is very much the 90s, and it's like a fifth generation of the Liefelds, the McFarlanes, everybody. And it's just, by this time, the style was oversaturated, the market. I mean, you know, like that. You got that, face, you know, don't have to draw a lot there. And this guy goes, ooh, I can't talk. Okay. And it has an issue 5, but the whole Ultraverse thing doesn't last very long. There's Siren. I like her design, though. She's got a cool special cameo by Juggernaut, because it's, you know, cha-ching. So Ultraverse. And a lot of people were just put off. They're like, okay, we're cutting back on our Marvels because you got the Spider Clone Saga sucking every penny out of us. You got just some of these, you know, crazy amount of X titles. We don't want more basic shit, and especially when it's not going to really. It's redundant publishing. It's and it's. I know the characters are different, but there's just no room. There's no room for the two of us in this town. So anyway, that's all. That's my story about Ultra Force and Exiles. Oh, later on, there was one character named Blink who was kind of popular, and Marvel started an Exiles series that was solely Marvel, and Blink was like the main character, and there was a bunch of other characters. It was a mutant, turned into a mutant title, and it was lasted quite a bit. So, okay, everybody, now I'm done yapping.